Alice in Zombieland by Gina Showalter. A note from Alice. Had anyone told me that my entire life would change course between one heartbeat and the next, I would have laughed. From blissful to tragic, innocent to ruined? Please. But it's all it took. One heartbeat, a blink, a breath, a second, and everything I knew and loved was gone. My name is Alice Bell, and on the night of my 16th birthday, I lost the mother I loved, the sister I adored, and the father I never understood until it was too late. Until the heartbeat when my entire world collapsed and a new one took shape around me. My father was right. Monsters walk among us. At night, these living dead, these zombies, rise from their graves, and they crave what they lost, life. They will feed on you, they will infect you, and they will kill you. If that happens, you will rise from your grave. It's an endless cycle, like a mouse running inside a barbed wheel, bleeding and dying as those sharp tips dig even deeper, with no way to stop the lethal momentum. These zombies feel no fear, know no pain, but they hunger. Oh, do they hunger. There's only one way to stop them. But I can't tell you how. You'll have to be shown. What I can tell you is that we must fight the zombies to disable them. To fight them, we must get closer to them. To get close to them, we must be a little brave and a whole lot crazy. But you know what? I'd rather the world consider me crazy while I go down fighting than spend the rest of my life hiding from the truth. Zombies are real. They're out there. If you aren't vigilant, they'll get you too. So yeah, I should have listened to my father. He warned me over and over again, never to go out at night, never to venture into a cemetery, and never, under any circumstances, to trust someone who wants you to do either. He should have taken his own advice, because he trusted me, and I convinced him to do both. I wish I could go back and do 1,000 things differently. I'd tell my sister no. I'd never beg my mother to talk to my dad. I'd stop my tears from falling. I'd zip my lips and swallow those hateful words. Or bearing all of that, I'd hug my sister, my mom, and my dad one last time. I'd tell them I love them. I wish. Yeah, I wish. Chapter 1. Down the Zombie Hole. 6 months ago. Please, Alice, please. I lay sprawled on a blanket in my backyard, weaving a daisy chain for my little sister. The sun shone brightly as puffy white clouds ghosted across an endless expanse of baby blue. As I breathed in the thick honeysuckle and lavender perfume of the Alabama summer, I could make out a few shapes. A long-legged caterpillar, a butterfly with one of its wings shredded, a fat white rabbit racing towards a tree. 8-year-old Emma danced around me. She wore a glittery pink ballerina costume, her pigtails bouncing with her every movement. She was a miniature version of our mother, and the complete opposite of me. Both possessed a slick fall of dark hair and beautifully up-tilted golden eyes. My mom was short, barely over 5'3", and I wasn't sure Emma would even make it to 5'1". Me? I had wavy, white blonde hair, big blue eyes, and legs that stretched for miles. At 5'10", I was taller than most of the boys at my school, and I always stood out. I couldn't go anywhere without getting a few "What are you, a giraffe?" stares. Boys had never shown an interest in me, but I couldn't count the number of times I'd caught one drooling over my mom as she walked by, or, gag, heard one whistle as she bent over to pick something up. Alice! At my side now, Em stomped her slippered foot in a bid for my attention. Are you even listening to me? Sweetie, we've gone over this, like 1,000 times. Your recital may start while it's sunny out, but it'll end at dark. You know, Dad will never let us leave the house. And Mom agreed to sign you up for the program as long as you swore never to throw a tantrum when you couldn't make a practice or what? Recital. She stepped over me and pointed those dainty pink slippers at my shoulders, her slight body throwing a large enough shadow to shield my face from the overhead glare. She became all that I could see, shimmering gold pleading down at me. Today's your birthday, and I know, I forgot this morning and this afternoon. But last week I remembered that it was coming up. You remember how I told Mom, right? And I remembered again, so doesn't that count for something? Of course it does, she added before I could say anything. Daddy has to do whatever you say. So, if you ask him to let us go, and in so much longing in her tone, and ask if he'll come and watch me too, then he will. My birthday. Yeah, my parents had forgotten too. Again, unlike him, they had remembered, and wouldn't. Last year, my dad had been a little too busy throwing back shots of single malt and mumbling about monsters only he could see, and my mom had been a little too busy cleaning up his mess. As always, this year, Mom had hidden notes in drawers to remind herself. I'd found them, and as Em had claimed, my baby sis had even hinted before flat out saying, "Hey, Alice's birthday's coming up, and I think she deserves a party." But I'd woken up this morning to the same old, same old. Nothing had changed. Whatever. I was a year older, finally sweet 16. But my life was still the same. Honestly, it wasn't a big deal. I stopped caring a long time ago. Em, though, she cared. She wanted what I'd never had, their undivided attention. Since today's my birthday, shouldn't you be doing something for me, I asked, hoping to tease her into forgetting about her first ballet performance and the princess role she liked to say she had been born to perform. She fisted her hands on her hips, all innocent and indignation, and well, my favorite thing in the entire world. Hello, I'm letting you go. This is your gift for me. Hello, letting you do this for me is my gift to you. I tried not to grin. Is that so? Yeah, because I know you want to watch me so badly you're practically foaming at the mouth. Brat. But like I could really argue with her logic, I did want to watch her. I remember the night Emma was born. A wild mix of fear and elation had seared the memory into my mind. Just like my parents had done with me, they opted to use a midwife who made house calls so that when the big moment arrived, Mom wouldn't have to leave home. But even that plan had failed. The sun had already set by the time her contractions started, and my dad had refused to open the door for the midwife, too afraid a monster would follow her in. So Dad had delivered Emma, while Mom was nearly screaming us all to death. I had hidden under my covers, crying and shaking because I had been so afraid. When everything had finally quieted, I'd snuck into their bedroom to make sure everyone had survived. Dad bustled about while Mom lounged out of the bed. Tentative steps had taken me to the edge, and to be honest, I gasped in horror. Baby Emma had not been attractive. She'd been red and wrinkly, with the most hideous dark hair on her ears. I'm happy to say the hair has since been shed. Mom had all smiles. She waved me over to hold my new best friend. I'd settled beside her, pillows fluffing behind me, and she placed the wiggling bundle in my arms. Eyes so beautiful, God himself could have created them, had peered up at me. What should we name her? When short, chubby fingers had wrapped around one of mine, soft skin and warm, I decided the hair on her ears weren't such a terrible thing after all. Lily, I replied. We should name her Lily. I had a book all about flowers, and the lilies were my favorites. My mom's soft chuckles had washed over me. I like that. How about Emmeline Lily Bell, since Nana's real name is Emmeline, and it'd be nice to honor your mother the way we honored your dad's when you were born. We can call your little miracle Emma for short, and the three of us will share a wonderful secret. You're my Alice Rose, and she's my Emma Lily, and together, the two of you are my perfect bouquet. I hadn't needed time to think about that. Okay, deal. Emma had gurgled, and I'd taken that as approval. Alice Rose, Emma said now. You've lost it in your head again, when I've never needed you more. All right, fine, I say on a sigh. I just couldn't deny her. Never had, never would. I'm not talking to Dad, though. I'm talking to Mom and making her talk to him. The first sparkle of hope ignited. Really? Yes, really. A brilliant smile bloomed, and her bouncing started up again. Please, Alice, you gotta talk to her now. I don't want to be late, and if Dad agrees, we'll need to leave soon so I can warm up on stage with the other girls. Please, now? I sat up and placed the daisies around her neck. You know the likelihood of success is pretty low, right? The cardinal rule in the Bell household. You did not leave the house if you couldn't return before dark. Here, Dad had worked up reinforcements against the monsters, ensuring none of them could get in. After dark, well, you stayed put. Anyone out in the big bad world was without any type of protection and considered open season. My father's paranoia and delusion has caused me to miss numerous school activities and countless sporting events. I'd never been on a date. Yes, I could have gone on a weekend lunch date and other craptastically lame things like that. But honestly, I had no desire for a boyfriend. I never wanted to have to explain that my dad was certifiable or that he sometimes locked us in the special basement he'd built and added protection from a boogeyman that didn't exist. Yeah, just peachy. Em threw her arms around me. You can do it. I know you can. You can do anything. Her faith in me is so humbling. I'll do my best. Your best is... Oh, ick. Face scrunched with horror as she jumped as far away from me as she could get. You're all gross and wet, and you made me all gross and wet. Laughing, I lunged for her. She squealed and darted off. I'd run the hose of myself about half an hour ago, hoping to cool down. Not that I'd tell her the fun of sibling torture and all that. Stay here, okay? Mom would say something that would hurt her feelings, and I'd say something to make her feel bad for asking me to do this, and she'd cry. I hated when she cried. Sure, she said, palms up in gesture of innocence, like I was buying that hasty assurance. She planned to follow me and listen, no question. Girls devious like that. Promise me. I can't believe you doubt me. A delicate hand fluttered over her heart. That hurts, Alice. That really hurts. First, major congrats. Your acting has improved tremendously, I said with a round of applause. Second, say the words or I'll return to working on a tan I'll never achieve. Grinning, she rose on her toes, stretched her arms around, slowly spun on her leg. The sun chose that moment to toss out an amber ray, creating the perfect spotlight for her perfect pirouette. Okay, I promise. Happy now? Subliminally. She smiled, be devious, but she never broke a promise. Watch me pretend I know what that means. It means, oh, never mind. I was stalling and I knew it. I'm going. With all the enthusiasm of a firing squad candidate, I stood and turned towards our house, a 2-story my dad had built in the prime of his construction days, with brown brick on the bottom and brown and white striped wood at the top. Kind of boxy, amazingly average, and absolutely 100% forgettable. But then, that's what he'd been going for, he said. My flip-flops clapped against the ground, creating a mantra inside my head. Don't fail, don't fail. Finally, I stood at the glass doors that led to our kitchen and spotted my mom bustling from the sink to the stove and back again. I watched her, a bit sick to my stomach. Don't be a wuss, you can do this. I pushed my way inside. Garlic, butter, and tomato paste scented the air. Hey, I said, and hoped I hadn't cringed. Mom glanced up from the steaming strainer of noodles and smiled. Hey, baby, coming in for good or just taking a break? Break. The forced incarceration at night drove me to spend as much time as possible outside during daylight hours, whether I burned to lobster bread or not. Well, your timing was great. The spaghetti's almost done. Yeah, okay, good. During the summer months, we ate dinner at 5 sharp. Winter, we switched it up to 4. That way, no matter the season, we would be in our rooms and safe before sunset. The walls were reinforced with some kind of steel, and the doors and locks were impenetrable. And yes, those things made our furniture-stick dungeon, known as the basement, overkill. But you try reasoning with a crazy person. Just do it. Just say it. Whew. So, I shifted from one foot to the other. Today's my birthday. Her jaw dropped, her cheeks bleaching of color. Oh, baby, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean. I should have remembered. I even made myself notes. Happy birthday. She finished lamely. She looked around as if hoping a present would appear via the force of her will. I feel terrible. Don't worry about it. I'll do something to make this up to you, I swear. And so the negotiations had begun. I squared my shoulders. Do you really mean that? Of course. Good, because Emma has a recital tonight, and I want to go. The thought of my mom radiated sadness. She was shaking her head before I even finished. You know your dad will never agree. So talk to him. Convince him. I can't. Why not? Because, I croaked. I loved this woman. I truly did. But oh, she could frustrate me like no one else. Because why? I insisted. Even if she cried, I wasn't dropping this. Better her tears than M's. Mom pivoted as graceful as Emma as she carried the strainer to the pot and dumped the contents inside. Steam rose and wafted around her, and for a moment she looked as if she were part of a dream. Emma knows the rules. She'll understand. The way I had to understand, time and time again, before I'd given up. Anger sparked. Why do you do this? Why do you always agree with him? And when you know he's off the charts insane. He's not. He is. Like I stomped my foot. Quiet, she said, her tone admonishing. He's upstairs. Yeah, and I bet he was already drunk. She added, we've talked about this, honey. I believe your dad sees something the rest of us can't see. But before you cast stone at him or take a look at the Bible, once upon a time, our Lord and Savior was persecuted. Tons of people doubted Jesus. Dad isn't Jesus. He rarely went to church with us. I know, and that's not what I'm saying. I believe there are forces at work all around us. Forces for good and forces for evil. I couldn't get involved in another good-evil debate with her. I just couldn't. I believed in God, and I believed there were angels and demons out there, but we had never had to deal with the evil stuff, did we? I wish you would just divorce him, I muttered, and then bit my tongue in regret. But even still, I refused to apologize. She worked from home 7 days a week as a medical transcriptionist and was always typing away at a computer on weekends. Like this fine Saturday evening, she acted like my dad's nursemaid too, cleaning him up, fetching, caring for him. She did it of so much more, and she was so young. For Mom, and so dang pretty. She was soft-hearted and funny and deserved some pampering of her own. Most kids want their parents to stay together, she said, a sharp edge in her tone. I'm not like most kids. You guys made sure of that. There was an even sharper edge to my voice. I wanted what other kids had. A normal life. In a snap, the anger drained from her face, and she sighed. Alice, honey, I know this is hard. And I know you want more for yourself, and one day you'll have it. You'll graduate, get a job, move out, go to college, fall in love, travel, do whatever your heart desires. As for now, this is your father's house, and he makes the rules. You will follow those rules and respect his authority. Straight out of Parents' Handbook, right under the heading, What to Say When You Don't Have a Real Answer for Your Kid. And maybe, she added, when you're in charge of your own household, you realize your dad did the things he did to protect us. He loves us, and our safety is the most important thing to him. Don't hate him for that. I should have known. The good and evil speech always circled around to love and hate. Have you ever seen one of the littlest monsters? I asked. A pause, a nervous laugh. I have refused to answer that question the other 1,000 times you've asked, so what makes you think I'm answering it today? Consider it a late birthday present, since you won't give me what I really want. That was a low blow, and I knew it. But again, I refused to apologize. She flinched. I don't like to discuss these things with you girls, because I don't want to scare you further. We aren't scared now, I lashed out. You are. Calm down, deep breath in, out. I had to do this rationally. If I freaked out, she'd send me to my room, and that would be that. Over the years, you should have seen at least one monster. I mean, you spend the most time with Dad. You're with him at night when he puts us a house with a gun. The only time I dared to venture in the hall after midnight, hoping to get a glass of water since I'd forgotten to bring one to my room. That's what I see. My dad clutching a pistol, marching his hit this way and that way, stomping to peer into each and every window. I'd been 13 at the time and almost died of a heart attack. Or maybe embarrassment, since I'd come pretty close to peeing myself. Fine. You want to know? I'll tell you. No, I haven't seen them, she said, not really shocking me. But I have seen the destruction they cause. And before you ask me how I know that, they were the ones to cause the destruction, let me add that I've seen things that can't be explained any other way. Like what? I peeked over my shoulder. Em had moved to the swing set and was now rocking back and forth, but she hadn't dropped me from the crosshairs of her hawk eyes. That I still won't tell you. There are some things you're better off not knowing, no matter what you say. You're just not ready. Babies can handle milk, but they can't handle meat. I wasn't a baby. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Worry had contorted Emma's features. I forced myself to smile, and she immediately brightened, as if this was now a done deal, as if I hadn't failed her in this regard 1,000,000 times before. Like the time she wanted to attend the art exhibit at her school, when the papier-mâché globe had been on display, like the time her Girl Scout troop had gone camping, like the hundreds of times her friend Jenny had called and asked if she could stay the night. Finally, Jenny stopped calling. Pressure building, can't fail this time. I faced my mom. She still had her back to me and hadn't abandoned the stove. In fact, she was forking the noodles one at a time, testing their flexibility as if a chore was the most important thing ever. We'd done the same dance before. She was an avoider, and she'd just hit her stride. Forget the monsters, what you have and haven't seen. Today's my birthday, and all I want is for us to go to my sister's ballet recital, like a normal family. That's it. That's all. I'm not asking for the world, but if you don't have the guts, fine. If Dad doesn't, whatever. I'll call one of my friends from school, and we'll go without you. The drive into the city was at least a half hour, so there was no way we could walk. And you know what? If you make me go that route, you'll break Em's heart, and I will never forgive you. She sucked in a breath and stiffened. I probably just shocked the crap out of her. I was the calm one in the family. I hardly ever lashed out, rarely went mental. For the most part, I accepted and I rolled. Alice, she said, and I gritted my teeth. Here it comes, the refusal. Tears of crushing devastation burned my eyes, splashed onto my cheeks. I scrubbed them away with the back of my hand. Forget about my lack of forgiveness. I will hate you for this. She glanced back at me, sighed. Her shoulders sagged in defeat. All right, I'll talk to him. All through her performance, Em glowed. She also dominated the stage, kicking butt and not bothering with names. Honestly, she put the other girls to shame, and that wasn't sibling pride talking. That was just plain fact. She twirled and smiled and utterly dazzled, and everyone who watched her was entrapped as I was. Sure, by the time the curtain closed 2 hours later, I was so happy for her I could have burst. And maybe I did burst the eardrums of people in front of me. I think I clapped louder than anyone, and I definitely whistled shrilly enough to cause brain bleeds. Those people would just have to deal. This was the best birthday ever. For once, the Bells had attended an event like a normal family. Of course, my dad almost ruined everything by continually glancing at his wristwatch and turning to eye the back door as if he expected someone to volley in an H-bomb. So by the time the crowd jumped up for a standing O, and despite my mad rush of happiness, he made me so tense my bones were practically vibrating. Even still, I wasn't going to utter a single word of complaint. Miracles of miracles, he'd come, and all right, okay, so the miracle had been reeled by a bottle of his favorite whiskey, and he'd been stuffed in the passenger seat of the car, like the cream filling in a Twinkie. But whatever, he had come. We need to leave, he said, hurriedly edging his way to the back door. At 6'4", he was a tall man, and he loomed over everyone around him. Grab him and let's go. Despite his shortcomings, despite how tired his self-medication had become, I love him, and I knew he couldn't help his paranoia. He'd tried legitimate medication with no luck. He'd tried therapy and gotten worse. He saw monsters no one else could see, and he refused to believe that they weren't actually there, or trying to eat him and kill him, all those he loved. In a way, I'd even understood him. One night, about a year ago, Em had been crying about the injustice of missing yet another slumber party. I, in turn, had raged at her mother, and she had been so shocked by my atypical outburst that she'd explained what she called the beginning of your father's battle with evil. As a kid, my dad had witnessed the brutal murder of his own father, a murder that happened at night in a cemetery while his father had been visiting grandmother Alice's grave. The event had traumatized him, so yes, I got it. That did make me feel any better right now. No. He was an adult. Shouldn't he handle his problems with wisdom and maturity? I mean, how many times have I heard, act like an adult, Alice, or only a child would do something like that, Alice? My take on that, practice what you preach, people. But what did I know? I wasn't an ever-knowing adult. I was just expected to act like one. And yeah, a real nice family tree it had. Murder and mayhem on every gnarled branch. Hardly seemed fair. Come on, he snapped now. My mother rushed to his side, all comfort and soothing pats. Calm down, darling. Everything's going to be okay. We can't stay here. We have to get home where it's safe. I'll grab him, I said. The first flickers of guilt hit me, stinging my chest. Maybe I'd asked too much of him, and of my mom, who would have to peel him from the roof of the car when we finally pulled in to our monster-proofed garage. Don't worry. My skin tangled around my legs. I shoved my way through the little crowd and raced past the stage curtain. The girls were everywhere, each of them wearing more makeup, ribbons, and glitter than the few strippers I'd seen on TV. When I'd innocently flipping through channels and accidentally stopped on the stations I wasn't supposed to watch. My mom and dad were hugging their daughters, praising them, handing them flowers, all about the congratulations of a job well done thing. Me, I had to grab my sister's hand and beat feet, dragging her behind me. Dad, she asked, sounding unsurprised. I threw a glance of my shoulder. She'd paled those golden eyes too old and knowledge for her angel face. Yeah. What's the damage? Nothing too bad. You'll still be able to venture into public without shame. Then I consider this a win. Me too. People swarmed and buzzed in the lobby like bees, half of them lingering, half of them working their way to the doors. That's where I found my dad. Stopped at the glass, his gaze painting the parking lot. Halogens were placed throughout, lighting the way to our Tahoe, which my mom had parked illegally in the closest handicap space for an easy in, easy out. His skin had taken on grayish cast, and his hair now stood on end as if he'd scrambled his fingers through the strands one too many times. Mom was still trying to soothe him. Thank goodness she'd managed to disarm him before we'd left the house. Usually he carried guns, knives, and throwing stars wherever he dared to venture out. The moment I reached him, he turned and gripped me in the forearm, shaking me. You see anything in the shadows, anything at all, you pick up your sister and run. Do you hear me? Pick her up and run back inside. Lock the doors, hide, and call for help. His eyes were an electric blue, wild with his pupils pulsing on his irises. The guilt, well, it stopped flickering and kicked into the hardcore blaze. I will, I promised, and patted both of his hands. Don't worry about us. You taught me how to protect myself, remember? I'll keep him safe, no matter what. Okay, he said, but he looked far from satisfied. Okay, then. I'd spoken the truth. I didn't know how many hours I'd logged in the backyard with him, learning how to stop an attacker. Sure, those lessons had been all about protecting my vital organs from becoming some mindless being's dinner, but self-defense was self-defense, right? Somehow my mom convinced him to release me and brave the terrifying outdoors. All the while, people shot us weird looks that I tried to ignore. We walked together as a family, our feet flying, one in front of the other. Mom and Dad were in front, with me and Emma a few steps behind them, holding hands as the crickets sang and provided us with an eerie soundtrack. I glanced around, trying to see the world as my dad must have. I saw a long stretch of black tar camouflage. I saw a sea of cars, places to hide. I saw the forest beyond, rising from the hills, a breeding ground for nightmares. Above, I saw the moon, high and full and beautifully transparent. Clouds still puffed through the sky, orange now, and kind of creepy. And was that? Surely not, but I blinked. Slowed my pace. Yep, it was. The cloud shaped like a rabbit had followed me. Fancy that. Look at the clouds, I said. Notice anything cool? I paused then. A rabbit? Exactly. I saw him this morning. He must think we're pretty awesome. Because we are. Duh. My dad realized we'd lag behind, sprinting the distance between us, grabbed onto my wrist and jerked me faster. Faster still, while I maintained my grip on Emma and jerked her along. I'd rather dislocate her shoulder than leave her behind, even for a second. Dad loved us, but part of me feared that he'd drive off without us if he thought it necessary. He opened the car and practically tossed me in like a football. Im was next, and we shared a moment of silent communication after we settled. Fun times, I mouthed. Happy birthday to you, she mouthed back. The instant my dad was in the passenger seat, he threw the locks. He was shaking too hard to buckle his seat and finally gave up. Don't drive by the cemetery, he told Mom, but get us home as fast as you can. We'd avoid the cemetery on the way here, too, despite the daylight, adding unnecessary time to an already lengthy drive. I will, no worries. The Tahoe roared to life, and Mom yanked the shifter into reverse. Dad, I said, my voice as reasonable as I could make it, if we take the long way, we'll be snailing it along construction. We lived just outside big, beautiful Birmingham, and traffic had been a nasty monster all on its own. That'll add at least half an hour to our trip. You don't want us to stay in the dark at a standstill for that long, do you? He'd worked himself into such a panic, we'd all be clawing at the doors to escape. Honey, Mom asked. The car eased to the edge of the lot where she had to go left or right. If she went left, we'd never make it home. Seriously, if I had to listen to my dad for more than 30 minutes, I'd jump out the window and act as a mercenary. I'd take him with me. If Mom went right, we'd have a short ride, a short anxiety attack to deal with, but a quick recovery. I'll drive so fast you won't even be able to see the cemetery. No, too risky. Please, Dad, I said, not above manipulation, as I'd already proved. For me, on my birthday, I won't ask for anything else, I promise, even though you guys forgot last year, and I never got a present. He shifted continually, scanning the nearby trees for a moment. Please, Em needs to be tucked into bed, like soon, or she'll morph into Lily of the Valley of Thorns, as we long ago dubbed her. My sister got tired, and she left carnage in her wake. Lips pursed, Em slapped my arm. I shrugged. The universal signal for, well, it's true. Dad pursed out a heavy breath. Okay, just break the sound barrier, babe, he said, kissing my mom's hand. I will, you have my word. My parents shared a soft smile, and I felt like a voyager for noticing. Used to be, they'd enjoy these kind of moments all the time, but her smile had become less and less frequent over the years. All right, here we go. Mom swung the vehicle right, and to my utter astonishment, she really did try to break the sound barrier, weaving in and out of lanes, honking at the slow cars, riding bumpers. I was impressed. The few driving lessons she'd given me, she'd been a nervous wreck, which had turned me into a nervous wreck. We hadn't gone far, cranked the speed above 25 even outside our neighborhood. We kept up a steady stream of chatter, and I'd watch the clock on my phone. The minutes ticked by until we'd gone 10 without a single incident. Only 20 more to go. Ted kept his nose pressed to the window, his frantic breaths leaving puffs of mist on the glass. Maybe he was enjoying the mountain valleys and lush green trees highlighted by the street lamps, rather than searching for monsters. Yeah, right. So how'd I do? Emma whispered in my direction. I reached over and squeezed her hand. You were amazing. Her dark browns knit together, and I knew what was coming next. Suspicion. You swear? Swear, you rocked the house hardcore. In comparison, the other girl sucked. She covered her mouth to stop herself from giggling. I couldn't help but add, the boy who twirled you around, I think he was considering pushing you off stage just so he could finally have people look at him. Honestly, every eye was riveted on you. The giggling bubbled out this time, unstoppable. So what you're saying is when I tripped over my own feet, everyone noticed? Trip? What trip? You mean that wasn't part of your routine? She gave me a high five. Good answer. Honey, Mom said, apprehension straining her voice, find some music for us to listen to, okay? Uh-oh, she wanted him distracted. I leaned over and glanced out the front windshield. Sure enough, we were approaching the cemetery. At least there were no other cars around, so no one witnessed my dad's oncoming breakdown. And he would have one. I could feel the tension thickening in the air. No music, he said. I need to concentrate. Remain alert. I have to. He stiffened, gripped my armrest on his seats until his knuckles whitened. A moment of silence passed, such thick, heavy silence. His panting breath submerged faster and faster, until he roared so piercingly I cringed. They're out there. They're going to attack us. He grabbed the wheel and yanked. Don't you see them? We're headed right for them. Turn around. You have to turn around. The Tahoe swerved hard and Emma screamed. I grabbed her hand, gave her another squeeze, but I refused to let go. My heart was pounding against my ribs, cold sweat beating over my skin. I'd promised to protect her tonight, and I would. It's gonna be okay, I told her. Her tremors were so violent they even shook me. Honey, listen to me, Mom soothed. We're safe in the car. No one can hurt us. We have to... No, if we don't turn around, they're gonna follow us home. My dad was thoroughly freaked, and nothing Mom had said had registered. We have to turn around. He made another play for the wheel, gave another harder yank, and this time we didn't swerve. We spun. Round and round and round. My grip on Emma tightened. Alice, she cried. It's okay, I chanted. The world was whizzing, blurring, the car teetering. My dad shouted a curse. My mom gasping, the car tilting. Freeze frame. I remember when Em and I used to play this game. We'd crank the volume of our iPod dark and loud, pounding rock and boogie like we were having seizures. One of us would shout freeze frame, and we'd instantly stop moving, totally frozen, trying not to laugh until one of us yelled the magic word to shoot us back into motion. Dance. I should have shouted freeze frame in just that moment and rearranged the scenery, the players. But life isn't a game. Is it? Dance. We went airborne, flipping over, crashing into the roaring upside down, then flipping over again. The sound of crunching metal, shattering glass, and pained screams filled my ears. I was thrown back and forth in my seat, my brain becoming a cheery slushy in my head as different impacts jarred me and stole my breath. When we finally landed, I was so dazed, so fogged, I felt like I was still in motion. The screams had stopped at least. All I heard was a slight ringing in my ears. Mom? Dad? A pause. No response. Em? Again, nothing. I frowned and looked around. My eyesight was hazy, something warm and wet in my lashes. But I could see well enough, and what I saw utterly destroyed me. I screamed. My mom was slashed to ribbons, her body covered in blood. Emma was slumped in her seat, her head at an odd angle, her cheeks split open. No, 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 no. Dad, help me! We have to get them out. Silence. Dad? I searched and realized he'd no longer been in the car. The front windshield was gone, and he was lying motionless on the pieces a few yards away. There were 3 men standing over his body, the car's headlights illuminating them. No, they weren't men, I realized. They couldn't be. They had sagged, pockmarked skin and dirty, ripped clothing. Their hair hung in clumps over their spotted scalps, and their teeth, so sharp as they fell upon my dad and disappeared inside him, only to reappear a second later and eat him. Monsters. I had fought for freedom, desperate to drag Em to safety. Em, who hadn't moved and wasn't crying, desperate to get to my dad to help him in the progress. I banged my head against something hard and sharp. A horrible pain ravaged me, but I fought even as my strength waned. My eyes sight dimmed. Then it was night for Alice, and I knew nothing more, at least for a little while. That ends Chapter 1 of Alice in Zombieland by Gina Showalter.